Yeah. So in all reality, like that kind of plays into this idea of like who is Lucifer and how much power does he actually have? And I would argue that he doesn't have any power at
He
all.
has as much
Even
power as we allow him.
yeah, but even with that, like in this, there's this idea in Christianity where Lucifer has power over them in hell. If you ever talk to like a Christian, it's some of them will believe that like you're going to be cast down with Satan and he's going to have power over you, and like that's where like a lot of the pain comes from. It comes from Satan and his like his demons, but it's kind of a misunderstanding. And if anybody in our church believes that, they're greatly mistaken, because in all reality, even a son of perdition still retains a body, which arguably is more than Satan what Satan has.
Sons
And
of
I
Right.
perdition
And
go to outer darkness and get destroyed, right?
I don't believe that. I don't think that there's enough support to support an annihilationist, because
we can never
like
we can
Any
actually
matter
never support
cannot
an
get
annihilation.
destroyed. Yeah.
right.
There
But
is
what
there is theories of the matter, the intelligences being broken back up and put back into chaos.
Yeah,
yeah, I've heard of that idea, but
that
I
was
guess my
my theory.
my perspective for like as far as like the unquenchable fire, I think it's you will remember your eons of progression as a
Yeah.
premortal spirit.
Fire
You will
being
remember
judgment.
Right.
you will remember
Yeah.
your thing, but you will be like, if I had just behaved for 70 years, I could have had all of this, and I wanted that, and I realize I will never have that. And you will always watch other people progressing as gods ahead of you, knowing that you'll never be able to become that again. And I think that's where the wailing, the weeping, the gnashing of teeth comes from, and that will burn forever. That's more what I understand, because a true, just, and merciful God doesn't actually have a physical place of fire and brimstone to burn you. I think you will be left with a remembrance of all of your choices and realizing that you didn't have the self-control enough to make it to the next level. And you will realize, but on the flip side of that, a true, just, and merciful God, and Travis Anderson makes this point quite a bit, where he says, the reason why there's no progression in between degrees of glory is because those people don't want that progression. Otherwise, a true, just, and merciful God would have to prepare a way for them to do that.
I
Yeah.
don't
And
think
so
it's that law. I think it's eternal law. I think eternal law is the justice, and we cannot go against the bounds of eternal law. I think God would have all of us with him if he could.
Right, but he would have to
I
prepare a way for
cannot.
people to do that
He
if they
cannot,
so chose to
because
want to.
it talks about like right here that all truth is independent. Okay, hold on.
Right,
A
but
man,
my point is that God would have to prepare a way if he was truly just and merciful, and they don't want that.
well,
And that's what creates that situation
but they did
for
not
them.
follow that law. They did not become
Right.
that being.
Right.
And so they
But
cannot.
right, but because of justice and mercy, if they wanted it, if they changed their mind, there would have to be a way prepared for them to now begin to obey that eternal law. But they don't want that, so there's not a way prepared for them.
Yeah, but
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
but what you said about the
Yeah, I
sons
don't
of
agree with it,
perdition,
but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
but what you were saying about the son of perdition is that they recognize that they could have obtained something, and that irks them. So I think the difference would be with the sons of perdition versus the celestial kingdom is the celestial kingdom individuals, while they receive, actually we'll talk below celestial, no glory, you're resurrected. Those individuals will continue to be in the following the law that they're willing to accept around individuals who are of like mind, right?
Right.
Neither progressing because they don't want to progress. And that's very apparent because in mortality, they didn't want to choose that anyways.
Yeah, and they will remain that way forever. They won't ever change their mind and say, actually, I do want to go to the terrestrial or celestial. They are going to say, I'm comfortable where I'm at, and I don't want to progress anymore.
And it's what's interesting about this idea is like those individuals will have the opportunity. They'll be given the fairest opportunity to accept it. So it's not like they just don't. It's not like, oh, well, they died and, in mortality, they were a bad person. It's like they were a bad person. They're in the spirit prison. They're actually afforded the opportunity to accept it. They choose not to accept it.
Yeah, and I said this to Jess, and I had her fact check this because she's really good on her second coming stuff. So second coming comes, then that begins the morning of the first resurrection. So the righteous will be there. The unrighteous will remain in the spirit world. And that they'll be there for the entire millennium, and near the end will be the morning of the second resurrection. Those who choose not to have repented during that time inherit the celestial glory. That's what the guided the scriptures say. But there are those who will repent in the spirit world during the millennium, and they can still obtain a celestial or a terrestrial glory depending on their progress and what they become. Like, that is still afforded to them. They just had to wait in the spirit world without being like a physical resurrected body. Those that are born during the millennium, once they die, they get twinkled into a resurrected being.
My favorite word.
I've always loved that word. I am a member of the church simply because of that word and how wonderful it is. But people will move from a mortal to an immortal state, but they will not receive their glory until the final judgment. That's when glory, I think, is actually distributed to us in our second estate, and we enter the third. But I believe all that timeline is correct, and where people are at what different time. But the millennium is a wonderful opportunity for everyone to get that fair chance that Sam is referring to.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's when
and
everything
progress.
gets made final.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing: is that has always been a question to me, because Christ will be personally reigning on the earth during the millennium. At that point, are people truly walking by faith? I don't think so. At that point, I think they have a perfect knowledge that he is the Savior. So progression might be a little bit different within the millennium, but he'll be on earth to actually give us those instructions and what we need to be doing during that time.
Yeah, but you have to be around the people that are getting instruction from the Savior.
Right. That's the thing. Well,
it already doesn't happen now.
That's true. But I think those people will be sent into spirit world to do the missionary efforts during that time as well.
Wait,
You'll see people with resurrected bodies teaching those in spirit world.
Y'all should really
and giving them an opportunity to progress. They just won't be able to have a resurrected body until the morning of the second resurrection.
So,
and some will still choose not to repent, and they go to the celestial world.
So I looked up. So the King James is really interesting because while it is kind of close to a word for word, it's definitely closer than like the Message, which is more of a paraphrase as far as like translation types. What's interesting about Son of the Morning,
which is why I love Blue Letter Bible, because it gives you the original Hebrew or Greek.
Yeah, like an interlinear version.
No, so if you go to Blue Letter Bible, it gives you the original version in Hebrew or Greek, and you can look up each word.
Dude, I can't do that.
Yeah, you can.
I don't know Hebrew.
Blue Letter Bible. It tells you what it means.
I'm just kidding.
I hate all these translations.
I'll use Bible Hub.
I'm so obsessed with them.
I'll use Bible Hub sometimes, and it'll have like an interlinear Bible, and you can go word for word. But what's interesting about Son of the Morning
is that maybe that's Bible Hub. No,
so okay.
Sorry.
So Son of the Morning, that phrase in the KJV, actually literally from the Hebrew breaks down to shining one, son of dawn. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting about dawn? So it makes sense that they would translate that to son of the morning, because the morning is when, well, specifically the dawn. You guys know how the dawn works versus like the first light in the morning. In that process,
when the dawn breaks, the dawn is over.
Yeah,
right.
But like the dawn,
I don't think I know what you're talking about.
Like the dawn light itself is an interesting concept because it's the light before the sun comes up. The visible sun comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the light you see in the morning prior to the sun coming up. And so
you would say that it is not the glory of the sun, but the glory of the pre-sun.
Of the sun to come. Yeah.
The sun to come. So we all were sons and daughters of the morning. Hopefully we all obtained some sort of glory.
So he was a type of what was to come almost.
And astronomical dawn is when the sun is 18 degrees below the horizon, the very first faint light. So in everyday usage, the dawn means the first appearance of light in the sky before the sun actually rises. Mm-hmm. So this is interesting because if you think about like the temple, going through the temple, it's this process again. And this is where I make the connection of our mortal experience to pre-mortality and kind of that similar, there are types of each other. It's the same process in each portion, we just don't know exactly what goes into each of those, like what actually happened in the premortal, what that looked like. We have these ideas of like a council and this great argument that happened, or this war in heaven, but like what it actually looked like is kind of where people speculate, well, it wasn't an actual war, it was, war of words or war of ideas. Well, it could have actually been an actual war in whatever sense that is in the premortal world. We just don't know.
Which is why I said in our last talk, I literally think we came here battling. Like, it was a battle to get here. I don't think it was just words. I think there was there's always been spiritual warfare. And like, I mean, it's about to ramp up more, but like, it's gonna, like, that's what it's always been about. It's always been the spiritual warfare.
Yeah, because
there's always opposition, Sam. I think there always has to be. There's always going to be some sort of opposition. Because everything would be compounded one if there wasn't.
So put a pin in that, because we definitely will talk on that. But getting back to the dawn, the first appearance, and the temple. As you move through the temple and the endowment, what do you go from?
Less light to more light.
Less light to more light. Literally and figuratively.
Right.
You go from less light to more light. So there's that symbolism in like the actual room is darker, now it's brighter. Right? Yeah. The same thing is happening. Well, that's what's happening in mortality too. Like you're going from the darkness and becoming a son of the morning, son of the first resurrection.
Correct.
You're becoming that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't also be a son of God. Like those things can happen. Those things are the one and the same. Like if you're a son of the morning, it means and this is kind of like where, this is me speaking. This isn't like the scriptures or prophets or anything that I'm aware of. The son of the morning is in this state, in this form, I can obtain to being a son of the morning. I will always retain being a son of God. I retained being a son of God from the premortal. Whereas Lucifer is no longer a son of God. And he is no longer a son of the morning because he was stripped of that glory, which would differentiate him from anybody in the premortal world who retains any glory that they've obtained while also remaining a son of God. So
you're saying
he was stripped of his, by being cast down. Like he could have chose to not continue on,
right?
And he would have retained his glory and perhaps even his sonship, perhaps. But by rebelling, he lost both of those things.
How do you lose? How would you say you lose your parentage? Because like if you're,
I don't think he's a literal parent.
You don't think that? You don't think he raised us from intelligences?
What does that mean?
That means we were something that was not.
Are we a baby? Are you saying we were a baby?
We were something that was not in a spirit body first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
if you're going to use the parenting language as if like, I am a parent to my children and at one time they weren't, and then they were because of a set of actions and the idea of parenting, then I would say, yes, he is our literal father.
Right.
But I think where people take that a little bit too far is where you get that kind of idea of the God makers, where it's like,
right. No.
Yeah. And so I want to be very careful. Like, I don't think the premortal world and forming of the spirit body, once again, I don't know.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like you can actually, I think, faithfully say that that's possible because of the idea that like, well, why does mortality have to be so much different than the spirit world, right? Perhaps it isn't. Perhaps the spirit world isn't that much different.
Yeah. So like I this is the way that I've always viewed it. We were intelligences. God saw us. He formed spirit bodies and allowed our intelligences to inhabit those things. By what mechanic he created that spirit body, I don't know. But by creating that body for us, we became literal children of God.
Yes.
Because in the same way that my children are my children here on the earth, because I formed their physical bodies
through procreation.
Now that's a mechanic that I understand in the mortal sphere.
Our spirit body.
I don't know what the mechanic is.
You can't do it without both. Because they can't be a god without a woman. Just reminding everybody here.
That's fine, but
I know Sam doesn't agree with me, so you need to do some research.
I don't agree or disagree.
Because there's an implication of a mechanism that we don't know, and that's
Right,
okay.
and that's fine. And
But
I
that's
don't
fine.
need to know.
But that's my point, is intelligence to a spirit body. We became literal children of God.
Agreed.
In that sense. But God is saying, in order to get to this next level, you will need to become children of the Messiah. And you do that through adoption, through covenantal relationships.
Correct.
Yes.
And what people argue,
you get that language, you get that ether language.
Yeah, and what Sam is referring to, in my opinion, is there's an idea in the church that some people think that we were always spirit bodies, and that God extended to us a covenant to enter with him, and he became our adoptive father.
No, I don't believe that.
And that is how we came to earth. And by Satan rebelling, he exited that covenant and lost his sonship because he lost it through adoption. In my opinion, if I believe that intelligences, God formed a spirit body, allowed us to inhabit those.
Yes.
We became literal children of God. Satan emancipated himself from the Father and his plan. Therefore, he fell completely, and he is no longer a son because he emancipated himself. So it wasn't God punishing him in that sense. He did cast him out of his presence when he said, if you're not going to be my son, you can't be with me. That makes sense to my mind. But there's nothing that says emancipation within the scriptures or prophetic counsel to but that's the only way that makes sense to me in my mortal perspective, is Satan said, I am not your child anymore, and he left.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, that is your choice.
Yeah, I kind of always believe he'll be because you cannot go against your physical makeup, because as we agreed, gods, angels, demons, they're all the same thing. They're in different states or living different laws. And so you're always going to have come from your parents no matter what you do. So I wouldn't think he would lose his sonship in the way that he came from God, but he would lose his covenantal sonship or his glory, his glory, I think.
Well, I think he's rejected. Well, no. That thought I was about to say doesn't make any sense. I immediately debunked myself.
Yeah.
Well, so your children right now, are those your children?
Miles, yes, they are my children. Okay. They are my mortal children. I am the father of their physical bodies.
Yes, of their physical bodies. Now, you believe that they spiritually have existed?
Yes.
Before. So you're not
they predate me.
So who's their spiritual father?
God the Father.
Okay, now who is their intelligence father? Who formed their intelligences?
Yeah, I don't think there is a father of their intelligence in that sense, because they are eternally intelligences.
So the way I think about it is it can only be the sense that you're adopted from the beginning.
But you're raised.
Yeah.
No, certainly.
Whatever that means.
Would you call me creating their physical bodies? I've adopted them.
I mean, perhaps.
No.
I could see the argument. I think you have to stretch for it,
because the woman creates the literal child.
Well, I'm doing this because obviously we know that
it's good.
God is our literal father, right? The prophets say that. So I'm not saying that that's not the case. What I'm saying
is, what does that mean? And I think that means that he formed our spiritual bodies, and he has become our literal father in heaven. I don't think that's an adoptive process in that sense.
I don't think so either.
Well, but we're saying adoptive from the mortality sense, right? Where you can actually have procreated, and there can be an individual outside of that procreation that you're bringing into your family.
I don't think that that's how God's family works. I don't think.
What I'm saying is, in mortality, there's options. Whereas in pre-mortality, if there's only spirit bodies and intelligences, in reality, you can't have those two options of adopted and not unadopted.
Right.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? There's not another God that you're pulling that spirit body from. So you can't be adopted.
You cannot be adopted.
You can't be adopted. But what I'm saying is you're adopted in the sense that I guess you could just say that you're literal then. I guess, yeah.
I don't think you
either way, it doesn't. What I'm saying is when we think of our parents,
mm-hmm.
we're thinking about it in the sense of I have no physical relation to, well, that's actually not entirely true either, because through Adam, we all have a physical relation to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah, see, and it
Yeah.
sorted itself out because we reasoned through it,
Yeah.
and I got to the end, and I realized, yep, there's no real way you can say adopt. It has to be literal.
Yeah, it has to be literal in that sense, but he's giving us the opportunity to be adopted by God the Son
Yeah,
Correct.
through covenantal
Because
relationships.
covenantal, which
Correct.
is appeasing eternal law versus in raising us from an intelligence, because we know there's two types of intelligences, right? Those that act and those that are acted upon.
yeah.
So either we were acted upon intelligences and he allowed us to act, maybe that was the raising of it, or we were intelligences that could act and he allowed us to, and he raised us so we could act more. Like, that's, I don't know what process that is, but that's my
No, I think that's a great way to think about it, because I mean Elder Bednar actually in his 2.0, what was the name of the title of that devotional?
Things as They Really Are 2.0.
Things as they really are 2.0. He actually mentions
Nerds.
the idea
I do the same thing
of agency, right? And where that kind of factors into things, the idea of acted versus being acted upon. And yeah, I think that, yeah. And so what me and Scooby were talking about was actually he's saying, like, you have the ability to act upon things and not just be acted upon. Here is the state of being that will allow you the conditions to where you can make those actions, and it's finite. So you're capturing an experience in each state. So in mortality,
each step.
In mortality, we have a set of choices that we can make that will have a finite. Well, it's a finite amount of choices that has an infinite possibility of progression, of course, or of an outcome. But with that, once we leave mortality, those opportunities to choose between those things in mortality are no longer with you. Because here's where an issue comes into play. If you think about it logically, can you fall after you've been redeemed from the fall, or can you regress or come back after you've been given a celestial glory and obtain that glory? Or is it locked in?
Because you become,
and why?
You have to become that.
Yeah.
There's living something, and then there's becoming something. You can't regress, because we know that God would cease to be God if he regressed, and he would not.
Now, does he have the choices to regress in front of him?
I don't think so, because he has become that.
I don't think he does either. I'm going to agree with you.
Okay, let me give you the counterpoint. So
counterpoint it up,
he is the perfect example of self-discipline, self-mastery, and all that stuff.
Okay.
He has agency. He just chooses not to do things that are contrary to eternal law or to his nature. But to say that
does he have the opportunity? Does he have the agency to choose to be unchaste?
If he wanted to, yes. He just doesn't do that thing.
He would not no longer be that then. He would no longer be, because he has become a
hold on.
Right.
Where
that's
he
my
is,
point.
Where he is at now, okay, in the celestial kingdom, is there the possibility of being unchaste?
Yes.
I don't think that there is.
He chooses not to.
I don't think that that doesn't exist. I think that choice doesn't exist in the it's not that he's taken, because the way it sounds is that he's taken away our agency, and now we are these robots.
Right.
I know that's how it sounds, but just like in the pre-mortal world, we didn't have the opportunity to even be unchaste. That wasn't a choice.
Well, we didn't have a mortal body.
Right.
To be unchaste.
Right. Now, but we're in the celestial kingdom. Are we going to be around people where we'd have the opportunity to choose that?
Because in Doctrine and Covenants 93:38, it says, every spirit of man was innocent in the beginning. And God, having redeemed man and from the fall, men became again in their infant state, innocent before God. So it said that in the pre-earth life, we were innocent. There wasn't an opportunity to spiritually go away from God, right?
Well, there was.
There was, but it says every spirit of man was innocent in the beginning.
Perhaps after the choice to either continue with God's plan or not, because that was the choice that was presented. I don't have that.
So yeah, the reason why I bring this up is because evangelicals all the time, they believe that Jesus Christ could not sin while in the flesh. I disagree. Otherwise, Satan.
No, he for sure could.
He for sure could. Otherwise, Satan wouldn't have come tempting him.
But Sam,
it wouldn't have made any sense for him to do that.
What Sam's trying to communicate is that, like, if you have become something else than what you were before, you cannot regress to that thing, or else you would not be that thing.
No, you absolutely can be presented that choice. You just simply choose not to do it. So, for example, in the Garden of Eden, when Satan is talking to God, Satan could tempt God to do something. God just wouldn't go for it, ever. He simply chooses not to fall for temptation or to act on bad choices because he has become a being that chooses not to do those things. But there's a difference between he just doesn't surround himself in his kingdom with agents that provide him those things. It doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means he's in a place that doesn't provide those opportunities.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's my point.
So
he still can do it. He just doesn't. He doesn't do that.
Never.
A good way to illustrate this would be the spirit prison. In spirit prison, will you have the opportunity to stuff your face and be gluttonous?
Yeah, or smoke or get drunk. No,
to sugar, you can't.
No. Why?
Yeah, no.
Because the place that you're in, that's not a choice you can make.
Yeah, so there's no opportunity.
You can want it. You can want it, but you no longer have the opportunity to choose it.
Right.
That's why we have to get over all of our vices now when we have a body.
But the thing is that the Lord looketh on the heart, right? So he still understands the intent of those spirits and that they want that.
Certainly.
In the celestial kingdom, that's not even an issue on the heart level.
Because the heart has changed.
Right, but God still interacts with beings that have that opportunity and can present that to him, and he chooses not to indulge in that.
And so I think
that's kind of what I'm meaning.
Well, and so we agree. I just think that when
we're talking past each other a little bit.
No, at its fundamental level, we all agree that I don't think that you can regress out of the celestial kingdom.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think we all say that, right? No one's going to obtain the celestial kingdom,
and then because you have to become that
after judgment, and you've received your celestial glory. I don't think that your glory's okay. Now we're getting into this weird thing. Does progression? Yeah. You've progressed from pre-mortality to mortality. Those who didn't progress, i.e., Lucifer, his glory was stripped from him.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, if you believe that this is the final thing, final judgment, which we often say, it says in the scriptures, we talk about it, final judgment. But are we just talking about mortality?
Well, see, that's the other thing is the Book of Mormon actually teaches a very unique doctrine in the sense that God can cease to become God. And it outlines the ways in which he can do that. But God is smart enough and righteous enough and self-disciplined enough to create, even in those scenarios, a path where he won't cease to be God. And that's my point, is like, because Satan obviously fell, even though he had attained a certain level of glory. Mm-hmm. Now, to say because he wasn't fully God, I guess that's the caveat of like, of course he could fall because he wasn't fully God. Mm-hmm. But the Book of Mormon does give us instances where it specifically says God would cease to be God. God just doesn't go for those possibilities. It doesn't mean that it's not a possibility. It just means that he is greater than they all, and doesn't leave the castle to go fight on other people's battlefields. He stays where he's the strongest, and Satan's trying to bait him out, and he's like, why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense to do that, and he's not stupid. Whereas, like, we have the example in the war chapters, there's a city, and I've been desperately looking for it, I can't find it. The Lamanites are in a castle, they're in a city that's been fortified. Helaman sends his stripling warriors out, and they say, oh, that's a small Nephite army, we should empty the city of all of our soldiers to go chase them. And as they do that, the other army of the Nephites goes into the city, The stripping wears double back, and they take the city without any shedding of blood, just through stratagem. My point is God will never leave his castle and give them an opportunity for Satan to take the city, because he's smarter than that. Like any strategy that Satan can come up with, God can 100% of the time say, no, I'm not going to do that, and stop being God. Although there's the possibility of it happening. Does that like make sense? My point a little bit more.
Everything you were talking about stratagem. Are you talking about Captain Moroni?
Yeah, Captain Moroni.
So you're talking like 43, almost 43 reps.
Yeah, I've been like in 48 to like 52, and I've been looking for that story. That might be 43. That might be what I'm missing.
Well, the title of Liberty is 46. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I've been looking at. Is
and
46
my favorite section is 42. You know that.
Yeah, let me go. Well, 42 is the spirit world, right? And resurrection.
Yeah, 42 is all about man's probation, Aries state.
Yeah, let me go to 43 really quick, just to.
But
if this is it, Sam,
Jacob 5 is Jacob 4 is my favorite.
It's not exactly, but you mentioned stratagem, and stratagem is specifically in. I know that's in 43.
Yeah, let's see.
Sam, do you have the Book of Mormon memorized?
No.
Are you sure?
I was close one time.
There was a really time in my life where I was close. I was really close on my mission.
I've only read the Book of Mormon maybe a handful of times.
Not close about memorizing it, but knowing where everything was.
Oh, no. I think it's very strange that there's 42 into 43. 43 almost seems like a foreign, like from the concept of 42. Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes into like that bit.
So with this whole stuff happening, I don't know if you want.
I heard you yesterday, Scoops.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
On that thought?
Yeah, you're like, I've been studying the war chapters because I feel like.
Oh, you think stuff's going to happen?
No. Yes and no. So I'm studying the war chapters for spiritual warfare prep.
Oh.
How did Captain Moroni remain Captain Moroni despite living in the world he was in? How did he remain a disciple and being, in Mormon's terms, the kind of man that if all men were or would be like him, the gates of hell would be shaken forever? How do we become that guy? To the point where Mormon names his son after Captain Moroni. Like, so he's obviously kind of like probably talking Moroni up a little bit because that's his hero.
Well, in 43, he talks about like fortifying, and like they actually wore armor, and they had like their scimitars and their swords and stuff, and like the Lamanites were naked essentially, except for like their loincloth or whatever. And so,
and I was pointing out how it wasn't just Captain Moroni. Like Mormon was up by himself as far as being a righteous disciple amongst his people. He tried, but they were past feeling. But Captain Moroni, when he's talking with Zarahemna, they surround them, right? And he says, Zarahemna, well, in a lot of these chapters, it repeats constantly where he says, I delight not in the shedding of blood. I don't want to do this, but I have to. And so he surrounds Zarahemna, and he makes a speech and says, Zarahemna, lay down your arms, promise to never come up against us again, and you can go. But if you don't, we're gonna have to do this. Zarahemna says, let's fight. So they do, and then Moroni calls again a ceasefire and says, Zarahemna, stop. Seriously. And he goes, no, we're going to keep doing this. And then his captain is the one that actually smites off his scalp and picks it up and says, even as this scalp has fallen to the earth, so shall you. And then Zarahemna does it. And I was thinking about that a lot, and it's like, Captain Moroni wasn't just on his own. His captains were men like unto him. Mm-hmm. They also didn't delight in the shedding of blood, as exemplified by his captain doing that. His captain wasn't being like, let's just do this. I hate this guy. Let's go. So it talks about a spiritual preparation that was there long before the battle was amongst all of his people, including that. But in chapter 48, it talks about how, because after he says the whole Moroni was this kind of a man, the word that he uses, he says, I was diligent to try to help these people, but and I think it's so important the way that the people that he references here, Mormon does. And he says, "If we shaken forever, and devil would never have power over the hearts of the children of men. Behold, he was a man like unto Ammon, the son of Mosiah." What was the first thing Ammon did when he was taken and bound before King Lamoni? He said, "I will be thy servant." It was about service. It was about thinking about other people. And even the other sons of Mosiah, yea, and also Alma and his sons, for they were all men of God. Who was Alma? He was the chief judge who spent all of his days serving the people after he repented.
After he stepped down from me.
Yep. And then in verse 19 it says, "And now behold, Alma and his brethren were no less serviceable." So how do we move forward in these trying times? And it's, you need to stop thinking about yourself. You need to start thinking about other people and putting on the character of Christ. Wear your spiritual armor, put on the whole armor of God. But your job is now to go take care of others and to help them get through this time. That's the only way I think we can actually get through it. And that's why President Nelson has been so upfront about, you need to be a peacemaker. You need to help others. You need to be a force for good in these tumultuous times. Otherwise, there's no way we're getting through this. And that reminds me a lot about the pre-mortal life. I think that exemplifies the war that we had there, because who knows if it was like actual fighting or not, but even in a war of words, it was probably the people who were the most serviceable that became the noble and great ones, and that progressed more than they all. So that's my thought on that. But
it really ties back into the pre-mortal.
Yeah, like that's been like I'm not studying the war chapters because of the physical fighting, but because of the stratagems. What are the spiritual principles of navigating such a tumultuous time that the people of Mormon did not do? Because they descended into madness, into chaos. Captain Moroni's people easily could have done that, but they chose not to. And I've always thought about this dichotomy of, whenever there's an evil force in the Book of Mormon, an antichrist, there was always a people or a prophet that was equal or better than them to come off conqueror. So Captain Moroni's big one was Zarahemna, Amalickiah, and Amaron. But Amalickiah has always stood out to me because he's the one that curses God and says, "I will drink Moroni's blood." That is about as evil as he can get. And yet Captain Moroni, I've been studying his epistles to Amalickiah. What's the language? How did he address those who literally wanted to drink his blood? And there is so much instruction there, spiritually speaking, of how do you, if you're debating somebody on an idea, how do you conduct yourself as a disciple of Christ? Well, look at Captain Moroni, see what he said. Like it's all there. Like it's, and
I think a lot of that, like you talked about, you alluded to President Nelson, and it's always like, let God prevail, think celestial, have confidence in the presence of God, right? It's all of these things that are thinking with the end in mind, and then to get us to work toward back from that, like, and that's where, like, that whole series that I brought up, the idea of it is really like, what are you actually doing with, like, you read the scriptures, you know the scriptures, okay, now what? Like, is reading the scriptures, is memorizing the scriptures, like, advantageous to you becoming a better disciple of Jesus Christ? Can be, if you apply its teachings, or you can just have all this useless knowledge in your head and all these symbolic connections, but if you're not doing the things, like, if your life's not actually changing because of it, in a way that would reflect Jesus Christ in your life, then it's really not useful. You
mean like sounding brass and tinkling cymbals?
Yeah, but I mean, even that, like, there's individuals
that.
And at times I fall into this camp too, where it's like, oh, I want to, like, learn about all this symbolism and this thing, but it's like, how am I taking that knowledge and actually applying its principles in my life?
Right.
And that's the difference between somebody like me and a Captain Moroni. Where Captain Moroni is saying, I know how to fight. I know how to lead. I know these knowledge-based stuff, but I'm also applying the spiritual lessons that I've learned into how I'm actually acting. Right. And it's affecting how he's acting because he understands, like, okay, so I do pass, or I do get killed or hewn down. Now what? Yeah. Well, I know what's next. Whereas I think a lot of the fear and the way people act is because they don't have the understanding of, like, and perhaps as a Christian, generally speaking, we don't fall into this issue as much as non-believers. But non-believer, it's like, well, I die and that's it. And so how can I maximize the pleasure now?
Even before that, they don't know who they are. And then
certainly, yeah.
Well, and that's something that I've been actually thinking about a lot. So the way that I use ChatGPT is I don't let it do the work for me. I say, here is the work that I've done. I want you to analyze it and critique where I'm strong and weak, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? What?
The 2.0. That's all he talked about.
What?
That's exactly what Elder Brenner talked about in All Things as They Were 2.0. That
Things
was like
that they
his
really are.
culminating. It was like, hey, don't write the talks with AI, but
Yeah.
I put my talks into AI to know the tone that's coming out of it.
Right.
He uses it
Yeah,
to
so-
analyze what he's writing.
Yeah.
So he said in a regional meeting with us, he said, do not let AI do the work you should be doing for yourself, lest you become a spiritual cripple. And that has lived rent-free in my mind for months now. So my thing is, I want you to critique it, and then I'm going to come back to you with the new work and see if I actually implemented the things and the suggestions that you made. And that's how I use it as a tool, because it's a telestial tool trying to accomplish celestial things. That's me. And so I've been debating this in my mind for a lot, because some people ask certain questions, they phrase them in a certain way that I'm like, I feel like we're not understanding the underlying principle. So there's a difference between making a coherent argument and a sound argument. A coherent argument is internally consistent. So, but it doesn't matter if the premises are true. So as an example, all cats can fly. Premise 2, my pet is a cat. Conclusion, my cat can fly. That is a coherent argument. It's just not sound, because premise 1, all cats can fly, is not true. So people conflate the two, and they are building a worldview or their theology off of false premises. This is very apparent in atheism, where they say, show me evidence that your God is real. Well, my question, this is the example that I try to pose to them. If we find the Ark of the Covenant tomorrow, and inside of it we find tablets that have the 10 Commandments written on them, all that does is it proves plausibility of the story, but it doesn't prove that God wrote it with his finger or that he traveled with them day and night in a cloud. Physical evidence...
Certainly.
Yeah, archaeological evidence does not prove theological claims. So you have to actually go to what that God told you to do to come to know him. And there's tons of examples of that. And what I say to atheists when they say, give me evidence that God is real, I say, get to the moon, but you're not allowed to use rocket ships. You have to use toothpicks. That doesn't make any sense. Why on earth would I use toothpicks to do that job? When rockets are right there. That's my whole point with this, is like, you are using a coherent argument, but it's just not sound. That's not how you come to know God. That's not what he's ever told, and that's why I can rightly reject the Trinity. It is based in philosophy, not based on principles that was revealed to us, and therefore we run the risk of telling God what he is and our relationship to him, and saying, this is what I am to you. You're incomprehensible. And he's like, I'm inviting you to come to know me. What do you mean? Like, that's what he has said, and we're saying, no, because I reasoned that you're incomprehensible, that you're immaterial, you're without parts or passions, and that you exist in this way. And he's like, when did I ever say that?
It's wild when the theology makes more mysteries than it solves.
Yeah, which I get is a fruit of the Spirit, is it not? Yeah,
absolutely.
That's testing the fruit. But that's the whole thing with Captain Moroni, is I believe in this principle of, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than to be a gardener in a war. The Lord is not asking us to delight in the shedding of blood, but to be ready in case we need to, and to defend ourselves. And that's the big principle and difference, is that we need to be prepared for whatever Satan throws our way.
Yeah. Now, and just so people understand, because I'll probably cut this into a different segment or a different clip, because most of the stuff's like post, or kind of like now in mortality.
Yeah.
What is the harm of being a pacifist? We would all agree that being a pacifist is not a good thing, but what is the harm in it?
Define what you mean by pacifist, I guess. Let's start there.
If they want to kill me tomorrow, I am okay with it. I won't defend myself or my family. What is wrong with that, with our understanding of mortality? Because we can have a position, right? If we have the end in mind, mortality isn't the end. So if I died tomorrow, well, is there something inherently wrong with me dying early? I've now received a body,
right,
and I will pass into the eternities.
I think I always say that Satan wins if you don't change, if you stay how you are today, right? because you are not who you need to be yet. I don't know how that has to do with your spiritual progression if you passed and then you were still able to spiritually progress in the spirit paradise / prison. But so I don't know exactly if that answers the question. I don't think it does, because I don't know what answer you're looking for. What is wrong with being a pacifist? If you do nothing in the face of evil, evil prevails. Right?
Well, does it though? The only reason why I ask that is because I'm thinking of many examples within the Book of Mormon where people were pacifists, and although tragedy happened, in the long term, so like take the anti-Nephi Lehi's, they made a covenant to bury their weapons of war, and then the Lamanites came upon them, and they decided not to take up their arms again.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the fathers of the stripling warriors who did take up arms. So it depends on the covenants and what you have determined with the Lord, because the Lord can accomplish his purposes regardless of what we choose to do to an extent.
Sam, are you saying pacifist or passive?
Pacifist.
Okay.
Yeah.
One who makes
who
peace,
denounces war and does
yeah,
not
essentially, yeah, like
Somebody
somebody
who
who's
chooses not to fight.
somebody who is able to, though. So I'm not talking about the person who's just is unable to take up arms.
Is able to take up arms, and in what fight are we talking about? Are we talking about physical altercation, or are we talking about spiritual altercation? Okay, I'm
saying physical death.
I don't know the answer to the question.
So I thought about this as well. Like, okay, well, because throughout my spiritual progression, I thought about life and mortality in different ways. At one point, I was very cynical towards life, where it's like, okay, well, mortality, we receive a body. And I don't mean cynical in the sense of like, oh, this is, not worth anything. It's like, if I die tomorrow, that's okay. Because, like I will have already received a body and I will continue to progress anyways into the eternities.
Yeah.
But as time has gone on, what I've realized is my tone, or the way I think about it, is shifted a little bit, and it has a lot more to do with my posterity. So if I pass, then the children I bring into this earth might be less. And if my family gets wiped out, well, then those spirits that are in heaven need to go to a body of some sort. And that's where, if like all the righteous get wiped out, where do they go? They have to go into the lineage of the wicked or the unrighteous, right? In some sense.
Okay.
So you can't be a pacifist. You have to take up arms and defend yourself, not because, well, at least this is how I view it, not because you need to survive mortality per se, but it's through your seed. Like your family needs to continue because you are a part of the covenant of people that have covenanted to bring people into mortality through your seed. Does that make sense? I'm probably not explaining this quite right.
I have seed probably in this life, so I just...
Well, I mean, certainly, but I mean, right. I guess what I'm saying is like your life matters all the way until death, not only because obviously you get more chances to choose the different things that mortality has to offer, but also there is a direct connection to, like you said, your children, your posterity in some sense. And those you influence. If you're gone, then you can no longer influence those who are on the outskirts, or like the fringe.
The fence.
On the fence, yeah. I think it's a better word to use. Of the positions to where you can sway them. So if all the righteous are gone, like the wicked will obviously prevail.
So you're saying,
aside from a drastic,
wrong with being a pacifist is that we must fight to stay here if we are going to influence and bring about righteousness. Because if all of the righteous are gone, I don't think God will let that happen. But I don't.
Well, do you believe that the flood narrative is an actual story, like an actual history, or do you believe it's a story?
There
He still sent prophets to try.
If it's a history,
there are certainly a lot of accounts in a lot of different cultures for it to not be history.
if it's a history, then I think that's a perfect example of there's too many wicked around this one righteous set of people.
Yeah.
And we don't want this righteous set of people to get annihilated off the face of the earth by all these wicked people around them. So we need to kind of cut the slate a little bit.
And it's interesting.
Get rid of some of these people.
So it's interesting.
Bring them to the spirit prison a little early so they can learn and develop there for a couple thousand years.
It's interesting that the sin of that time was basically abortion and not having children, about how
Certainly
it would take
some of the worst sin, I would say.
The worst sins, yeah.
Yeah.
And not even talking about Baal stuff, but
yeah. Well, so here, that's kind of where I'm having a lot of conflicting ideas on this, because like we have in Mosiah 24, the people of Alma are taken into bondage by Amulon and the wicked priests. They were being pacifists. They actually tried to rebel a few times and it got beaten down. But the Lord like consecrated those afflictions for them. But then I'm seeing, so the anti-Nephite Lehi's in Alma 24, they chose not to raise up their arms. And then you have in Alma 14, you have Alma and Amulek when the people are being burned. Amulek looks to Alma and says,
children.
He says, what can we not just stretch forth our hands? And Alma says, the Lord is constrains that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
He constrains me so that he can seal a blessing upon the righteous and a damnation upon the wicked. So to me, because these are kind of contrary and conflicting, like what should we do in the face of like terrible wickedness? It almost feels like war, it almost feels like being pacifist, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt turn the other cheek, stuff like that is the rule. War happens to be the exception. No. Are people justified in defending themselves? Absolutely. But again, in a study of the war chapters, the first thing Captain Moroni does is he goes to Alma and says, what are the Lamanites doing? He still turned to the prophets. He still became a righteous man. He still raised a righteous army. He had Helaman take the sons of the stripling warriors, as his sons, the stripling warriors who are the children of the anti-Nephite Lehites who were the pacifists and died. So it's kind of one of those, like, you just got to stick close to the Lord and he'll consecrate whatever's going to happen. But in each of these scenarios, these people were listening first for what the Lord expected of them and allowed them an opportunity to make choices. And that's... So I guess I have a problem with the premise of is being pacifist wrong? And it's like, not really, because that's supposed to be the default position. Yeah. But the Lord has different purposes and can raise up a righteous people to defend itself and to come off conquer if he needs to. But then, going back to the flood and stuff, he will always send prophets. He sent Mormon during his time when the entire Nephites got annihilated. But he still gave them an opportunity. He still tried. And so that's kind of like, that's where I'm having conflicting. It's like the principle that I'm seeing over and over is you need to look for the Lord first. And he takes into your account your agency and what you want to do. And he seems to actually value that very highly in the decision-making process. He's not just saying, actually, no, I need you to die here. But then again, you have prophets like, why was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saved from the flames, but Abinadi wasn't? I don't know the answer to that. You what?
Or the daughters of Oniah.
Right. It's like, I don't know all of these instances, but the one thing that's consistent amongst all of them is they were passionately faithful and looking to the Lord first. And he understands the whole plan of salvation. He understands that, maybe it's that he understands that Abinadi had learned what he needed to while in this mortal existence and was needed in the spirit world. That's very possible. I don't know. I wish that would be a fascinating conversation to have with Abinadi later. Hey, did you ever figure out why the Lord let that happen to you?
How painful was that?
Also, you thought
only the initial first 5 seconds before all the nerve endings burned off. But...
Oh my gosh.
He may have taken the pain away. I don't know.
But perhaps, yeah. I mean, I guess hopefully he got to hang out maybe a little bit after in the spirit world, to see what was happening. But he thought he failed, right? He went to his grave thinking he failed because nobody joined, right? Because Alma left and it was like a mission. Actually, he didn't baptized in
I have a
England.
bit of a
you
rant
died
on that
murdered.
subject, actually.
You what?
I have a bit of a rant on that subject, actually.
Yeah?
On he
Want to
is
get on
he
your
is
soapbox?
he's the best prophet to ever fail. He is the greatest missionary
Yeah,
of all
he's
time
amazing.
in all the scriptures. The reason why I say that is because, yes, he did die not knowing that Alma the Elder took his lessons, but Alma the Elder went and baptized thousands, had a son, Alma the Younger, who baptized thousands. He had a son named Helaman, who baptized thousands, and Rose the stripling warriors, who had a son named Helaman, who had two sons named Nephi and Lehi, who saw visions of angels and converted thousands. And then they had the rest of the Book of Mormon is literally the lineage of the convert of Abinadi until we get to fourth Nephi, and the last in that bloodline says, Mormon, I perceive that you're a young lad and that you'll do this. But the next few hundred years is literally just the efforts of Abinadi. So he's the best missionary to ever fail. And I love that. And so even if you feel like you're not making an impact, you need to share your testimony, because who knows, you might have an Alma the Elder that's listening. And hopefully you don't have to burn at the stake for that to happen.
Well, awesome. Hey, I got to go. I appreciate
Sure.
you guys coming on and talking about this. And I'm going to clip this in probably into three or four segments, because we talked about a couple different things, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we talked about
2 hours worth. 2 hours worth. We talked about a lot of stuff. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Bye, Sam.